Alright everybody, it's Brian Mulvey here with Michigan Moto Mods, mymotomods.com. We're doing an install video for the KLX110. This is our Tier 3 street legal kit. This comes with OEM parts up top and an ASV brake lever. So first off, we're going to start off by removing all the plastic. Alright, so once you have all the plastic off the number plate, first thing we're going to do is mount our front brake lever, our new brake lever. So we already put the cable through, so just run, this one does have 12 bars, so we have an extended cable, but slip this over first. Slip your cable tensioner on, and then this slides up to go over top for your adjustment. And that's how you can adjust your cable. This wire will connect shortly. This is for the front brake light switch. Pretty standard stuff, not too difficult. Next, we're going to install our harness and horn assembly. First off, we need the Phillips head screwdriver. And on this particular bike, we're going to mount it on the left-hand side. So take off the screws for the controls. And in your packet, you'll notice rubber shims. The rubber shims go on these to provide tension on the bars. There's a couple different sizes. I like the thickest ones, but if you want it to be able to twist a little easier, you can run the thinner ones too. Pop those on. Got some extra wires here to work around. Now we're going to route our wires all the way towards the back of the bike, with the exception of the horn wire. Horn wire is going to go down through here and back out the other side. So on this bike, we're going to route this through the forks. Oops, I want to get it on the other side of this. I'm going to go through the handlebars first, and down through the forks. Through our bracket, our wire stay. I found with these bars, we ran this on the outside, but you can run that on either side. Then we're going to slip these down in between the gas tank here. And this part's a little tight, but we're going to want to go up through here and around behind the fuel on-off switch, or petcock. These are our rear tail light plugs for all of our rear tail light blinkers. We have our main ground wire. We have our engine power, or our power for our full kit. And we have our rear brake light switch wire, all nicely wrapped in heat shrink for you. Pull that, kind of tuck that back in there so it's nice and tight. Remember this horn wire, we're actually going to route this one back here. We're going to drop this back out on this side. We'll wire that up here shortly when we install the horn, but we want that to sit right back over here. Alright, so back to running our harness. Just going to kind of tuck the wires in where it makes the most sense to kind of have them hidden and not, so they don't rip off when we crash. And try not to rip some of your labels off, but we've done so many, we know which wires go where. Okay, liking that. And we'll want to get up in there, so let's pop this down. Okay, we got our ground wire, got our tail light, and our power wire. Brake light switch does not need to come up here, because that's going to go across to the other side. This we're going to keep back here and run that down inside the frame. We'll worry about that later. Just want to get everything temporarily ran. Okay, these will pop up over here. Ground wire comes out here, and then we'll have our power wire, and we'll connect that. All right, so we have the harness basically in place. We're going to start working back from the front, so we're going to jump over and install the horn. The horn, you need to remove the 8mm bracket and the front fairing support. We're going to mount it right on this bolt. So you remove that bolt, holds the strap, put your horn in there. It's probably easier to put your wires on first. Grab your horn wires. Horn wires don't matter each one. Which side? Alright. Now we're ready for this. Just want to check your fender, make sure your fender doesn't hit. See? Right there, we got a good 1/2 inch clearance. You don't want it to touch anything else. If you can, it'll just muffle it a little bit. So we're good there. Go ahead and tighten that down. There, that's on nice and tight. Horn's mounted. Next, we'll mount the light bar and get the wiring up front all taken care of. Start with the Allen bolts loose. And you want your light bar to sit right inside here. I like my brake cable to be on the, I think this one was on the inside. I like to run the light bar directly above or as close to the number plate as possible. So before I tighten these down, I'm going to check the height and the level of the front number plate. Okay, that's where our number plate's going to sit. So I like that nice and level right across the front. Good. Tighten those down. And then finally you can tighten down the Allen wrenches on the front. Alright, so once we have the light bar on, basically you just have to plug the light bar in. It's the big plug. And next we have the front brake light switch. So you find the wire that's labeled front brake light switch. Go ahead and push those in. If you're in a state that requires front turn signals, and you ordered a set of turn signals, those connect up here and here. And then we also have an additional add-on. It's tucked back in here right now, but it's the free plug that is for the accessory power. And we also sent you with your kit a universal plug so you can hardwire in like a cigarette lighter and stuff like that. Alright, so we got this. We're going to kind of wire these back. Oh, let's get our zip ties out. In each of your kits you were provided with 10 zip ties. Most people find that's about the correct number. Alright, so I'm going to put a zip tie in here, do another one down here, kind of hold that brake light wire out of the way. And then we'll zip tie our bundle together. Kind of tuck the wires out of the way so everything kind of stays down in there. This is your flasher relay, if you're curious what that box does. I'm going to check, make sure we don't have any tight wires. Looking perfect. Alright, so the front end's more or less done. You tuck that brake or the horn wire down back in there a little bit. Alright, so on to the back. Now we're going to mount the taillight section. So your taillight comes pre-assembled. Remove the 7mm deep lock nuts from the back. Remember, these are just need to be hand tight. Only hand tight. If you pull them through the housing, it'll crack the housing, so just be cautious with that. So take your bracket off. Well, first you can look at it and see how you want it to line up. Typically what we do is I take a Sharpie and draw a line across the front of this bracket where it needs to be mounted. Line this up right where you want it. So ours sits nice and tight inside the fender right there. So I'm just going to draw a line right across the front. Okay. Take our taillight assembly apart. Take our custom bracket, and then we're going to drill 3/16 holes right up through the middle. So start with the first one. See that this is already drilled, but we're just going to do this again so you can see it. So line it up on the line, and then take your bit, drill it through the hole, and up through the top. After your first one's done and your center one, we'll actually put that rivet in. So we do still offer 3 rivet colors. We have red, blue, and black. This customer decided to, or requested black, so we're going to grab our black rivets. Included with your kit are 5 rivets. You do only need 3, but we gave you a couple extra just in case. So you want to push your rivet down through the top, through your front hole. Just grab your rivet gun. And then once you get that one lined up, you can drill the holes from the bottom up. So drill up from the bottom and drill your other hole. And again, push your rivet down from the top. And set them down nice and tight. Alright, next you're going to drill your hole for the wires to pass through. It's a 3/8 drill bit, and this is where you're going to have the rubber grommet that goes in to keep the wires, or keep water out from the back of your battery box. So, this is kind of a personal preference, but we found right about in this area. You can check on the top to make sure. You can see where the hole goes through. But that's a good spot to do the pass through. Now, this is the hardest part of our entire installation, is installing this rubber grommet. But you want it tight and you want it to keep the water out. So our best suggestion is spit on this a little bit and get it wet, and then when you put it in, if you take a little screwdriver and pick the edge out, you can actually get it in. So we're gonna see if we can get this one to go in nice and easy for us. So kind of start, kind of fold it and push it where you can, and then if you use a little flathead screwdriver, you can kind of push the lip back down through. Just try not to tear that grommet. Just kind of pick away at that edge a little bit with a small flathead. And once that grommet flange is all the way out and around, oh, that one looks pretty good. If you look from the bottom, you'll see the flange is all nice and wide. know we're through. So now we're going to mount our tail lights. So push tail light wires through the hole, back feed these back through, and then we'll grab our washer and stainless steel lock nuts and put the washer on first, and then the lock nut. And remember, only hand tight. These do not back out. And you don't, all you need these to do is hold it on nice and tight. Don't get crazy with it. Should be able to turn these in by hand with a 7mm deep. Might also be an American size too, I'm not sure. 7mm is what fits perfectly. You can see I'm just running this in by hand until it gets tight. And that's good. I'm not going to get crazy with it. If you hear it pop, it means you spun the bolt backer inside the plastic housing, which isn't terrible. It just makes it a lot harder to get the light assembly back off if you ever want to take it off for any reason. Alright, so tail lights on. Now we're going to take these wires, and again, if you get these a little soapy or wet, it's makes them pass through a little easier. I've got a little bit of Dawn dish soap and water, so I'm just going to get this kind of wet so it slips through nicely. You're going to have to push these ends through kind of one or two at a time because it's a tight fit. But that's what you want, because you want it to keep everything out. See, I'm just kind of going through a couple at a time. Got one left.
The grommet is such a nice touch.
You know, it just keeps everything clean, and there we go. Okay. Go easy if you don't want to pull that cord through, but like I said, with a little soap water, it actually holds it on nicely. The last thing I like to do is I take our same 3/16 drill bit, somewhere around the side of the fender. I drill 2 holes, right here and right here. And this is just for a zip tie to hold that wire so it's not hanging down in your fender well. Take a zip tie. Nice and tight so we know about where our length is. Okay, kind of hold that right there. That's good. Alright, now pretty simple stuff from here on out. We just have to connect our wires up. So red goes to red. And this one is white with a black stripe. If for some reason your blinkers are working backwards in the rear, just switch the white and the yellow wire. Those are the only two that we've noticed that we've had some inconsistencies, but most all of them are fixed now and don't have any of that issue. I just know we had that once or twice. Okay, white. And lastly, our ground, which is black. Alright, we'll zip tie those off later once we get those on. Got our power wire that we need to connect. We're going to leave this extra up in here so we can twist that together. Now this one, we are going to do the update on this, which all your kits will include now. We're going to show you. So your wire is going to come stripped. Alright, so on the KLX, power wire for our switched ignition is going to be in this box. So we're going to pull the plugs off to make them a little bit more accessible. If you lift up on the little tab, they'll pop out nice and easy. Pull those out to the side. Okay, so this brown with kind of gray dots on it, this is our switched ignition. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your wire cutters and you're going to clip this wire. Whoo, scary stuff. You might need to peel this housing back just a little bit, so I'm just going to kind of snip this back just a little bit. Just be careful you don't cut the wires. If you cut the wires, you're not going to be in good shape. Alright, take this. We did previously have a T-tap quick connector, but what we found is after about a year of riding, the T-tap quick connector would wear through the wire, and it would actually cut the wire and you'd lose power. So we have to hardwire this now instead, so that way this connection doesn't fail. So just go ahead and strip those wires. And that was it. Strip that a little shorter. Okay, and I like to run these on the same as the plug side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take your provided heat shrink connector. I'm going to mount it to these two first, so twist these two together. Slip your heat shrink in here. You can solder this, but the majority of our customers don't solder, so we're just using these quick connectors. Crimp down the one side. Make sure it's on both of them good and tight. Perfect. And then we're going to slip this end in here and go nice and deep all the way in. Nice and deep. And crimp this side down. Okay, so that's our connection for our power. We are going to heat shrink this, so we're going to use a heat gun. You can use a lighter or a torch. Just be cautious not to melt your other wires. So I'm going to kind of pull these apart a little bit and see if I can do this without melting anything. Alright, so we got our heat gun. Like I said, watch your other wires. I like to start on the bottom and get the majority of this done. Alright, so start putting everything back in on the bike. Let's hook our main computer plug back in. Give you just enough room for this box to fit through, apparently. There we go. All right, push the computer back down. Okay. Fuse nice and accessible right up top. Wires down. Our other box back on. Okay. That's our negative, positive. Okay. And finally, before we connect up the battery, we're going to run our wire and connect our rear brake light switch. So let's go to the other side, and we'll show you how that goes on. Alright, so start off by removing these two bolts here. And you'll get our custom KLX bracket that's machined to fit this bike specifically. This is your brake light switch. Put that through. I like to give myself a couple threads on top for adjustment if we need to lower it, but primarily we typically find that you'll have to raise that switch to get it to activate a little bit more aggressively when you use your foot brake. So that's the brake light switch, and we'll show you how to mount that. So this will actually drop right in here. Okay, that's our brake light switch mount. Next, you need your spring. And what we like to do is we take our spring and a 1/8 inch or smaller one. You know, you can use a super tiny, like 7/64, whatever size you have in your kit for a drill bit. And we will actually be drilling a small hole through our foot brake lever. So what you want to do is hang your spring and then run that down. Get that nice and straight. Run it down nice and close to your case, but try not to touch it. Mark a spot in your lever, and then we're going to actually drill a small hole through. So you can see I already drilled this one. Got a nice tiny little hole down there, just big enough for this cable. And then for setting your height, if you take a small pair of pliers, you take that right where that curves, right down there, you're going to take your pliers, put it on there, and bend it in a 90 degree. You can see that this one's already been done, but we'll just show you again how we do this. So again, put that through in a 90 degree, stick that through. You'll see it's tight, and when that brake lever moves, it actuates that brake light. So if you need to tighten this up more, if it's not activating the light, you can either tighten it by raising or lowering this bolt. This one looks like it's extended out a little bit, so we might have to drop it down, but we'll wait till we get everything wired up. And then basically you take your wire and you fold it up and wrap it around, but we'll show you that later. Next, we need to route our wire. We want our wire to stay out of the exhaust way. So we're going to find a nice path, you know, through the frame, kind of like this up through here. But we might not be able to get it. That one was pretty tight. So let's see. I think the last time we mounted this, I'm going to scoot over here a little bit, kind of put a curve in those and see if we can get those to go up. Look at that. Holy moly. It's like magic. I thought I put it there. Tuck our wires down there so it keeps them out of the way. And then these will route back through underneath the frame. Again, keeping it away from all of the heat and any moving parts. Come back to this side, and our wires are sitting right here. And we will utilize this existing wire holder. Pull those up through there, and we'll take our brake light wires, plug those in. Again, it doesn't matter what side they go in. So we got those wired in, and now we can take this extra and we can zip tie that back right there. So now we've got our rear brake lights wired in, we have our front brake light wired in, we have our headlight, we have our horn, and that should be it. Now all we have to do is connect up our ground wire and test this bike out. So I have noticed that on this Kawasaki it's a little tricky to work with these batteries. So I am going to pop the battery box the battery retainer bolt out so I can slide this battery towards me. It's probably my least favorite thing in the Kawasaki, but it's not too bad. It's just this battery is just a little tight to work with. So if you just take that bolt and kind of pull that out a little bit. And again, this has the extra plug. This is for his battery tender. So no, that's not necessary. We'll take this, we'll run it underneath. Make sure that's down in there in a nice spot. It's an awfully short bolt for the extra wires. Okay, get this one on. We're going to have to pop that little battery post up a little bit. There we go. And I'll grab a Phillips head screwdriver. There we go. Kind of like to try and keep that ground wire twisted back a little bit. And not ever a bad idea to put a box end wrench on there and give that a little extra tighten so your battery doesn't vibrate and come loose. So put that on there, give it a little bit extra. Okay. Push the battery back in. Alright, so now before we wrap everything up, we'll do a quick test on this bike. So this one probably has a dead battery. Alright, so we got high, low beam. So you can see on this, low, high. Yeah, let's check our brake lights on, our running lights on. Brake light actuates by the front. Brake light actuates by the back. Good. Got the horn. We're good to go. Alright. Alright, so now we'll zip tie all of our wires off. So I like to pull this kind of loom. Let's see. Kind of tuck that down in there. Put a little zip tie through there. That won't be in the way of anything on our seat. And we'll pull these wires over. Got our fuse right in there. Take that, fold that in there. Pull these in, we'll pull them that way. Good wire management is a good thing. Keeps you from having issues, keeps you from getting breaks, shorts. So we're going to take those. We don't want to push them into the shock, but we're going to take them and push them right up tight to this frame rail here. So we'll put one right here. Let's go ahead and put another one down here. Pull all these wires together. I like that in there. That looks pretty nice. These are all the factory wires here, and we just added the one wire to it. Alright, wires are tight there. Only thing we have left to do is tie this front harness wire back off. So we'll put one right here to keep our hand controls wire nice and tight. There we go. Wires are good. Let's clip all our spare ends. Another good thing to remember is after you clip them, rotate your tabs down if you can, so they're not on the outside of the bike where you're going to scratch your hand on them, because they are sharp little bastards. So kit's done. We tested our brake light. Last thing we have to do is wrap this wire on, so come over to this side. So remember, we folded this wire over and just left it hanging out. Now what we're going to do is just take that wire, we're going to pull it all the way around the kick lever, or the brake lever, and then we're just going to wrap it around behind it. Just stick it out the back. That's all we need to do for that. And that will stay on. And now you can see we got full brake light actuation. Alright, plastic put back on. Last, we have the front fender. Now you guys can cut this front tab off if you want. A lot of people prefer to cut that off, but if you'd like to keep that, you can. It does still work with it. Alright guys, so there you have it. This is our KLX110 street legal kit from My Moto Mods. We should be back in stock next week. If you have any questions, definitely let us know. Thanks a lot, guys.